All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Claire Alford. I'm with Highland Electric Fleets. I'm the Eastern Regional Manager for the Market Development Team. I do cover Texas, even though I'm Eastern. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. So they put me on Texas because Texans like to talk to Texans, is what I was told. So I'm happy to be here covering Texas today and covering the EPA Clean School Bus Program, and then also getting to hear a little bit more just about school bus electrification in general, and want this to be a really open setting. So after we hear from our awesome panelists, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, and at that time you can feel free to come off camera and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat if you prefer. But I will talk more about that as we get into the presentation. I will kick off though with a little bit of background on Highland for those that aren't familiar. We were founded in 2019, so we are a relatively young company now, but we've grown very quickly. We're active in over 30 states and Canada. We are behind the largest school bus electrification project in North America, also one of the first school bus V2G programs in America with National Grid, and we currently have over 500 electric school buses under contract, and around $60 million in grants and incentives secured. What you'll see here is a map of where our projects are located. So all throughout the United States, again, over 500 school buses are represented from these yellow dots, including a few in Texas. We can go to the next slide. And I actually will just say though, so what Highland does is provide school bus electrification or fleet electrification as a service, or energy as a service. You'll see a few different acronyms for it. And essentially we don't manufacture any electric school buses, but we work with school districts to help them procure electric school buses, the charging infrastructure, and then train their workers. So we're not displacing any workers, train their maintenance staff and their school bus drivers to work with the electric buses, and then help throughout the lifetime of our contract, make sure that the buses are charged when they need to be, and that the chargers are working, and that everyone feels comfortable with the transition. One of the reasons why we are hosting these webinars, and we're hosting these across states in the US right now, is because EPA round 3, I'm sure by this point, since we are three rounds in, everyone has likely heard of it. It's a super big deal, especially for the electric school bus industry specifically. So that is a little bit of the why now. So there's a ton of policy support for school bus electrification. The EPA Clean School Bus Program is probably the biggest example. There are also state incentives. So TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, has TexFEMP and some other school bus specific programs, funding opportunities, and then utility programs. All of the major manufacturers of school buses that you see on the road today, Bluebird, Thomas, IC, and then some others such as Lion and others, have electric school bus offerings on the road today. And a lot of them have been on the road for 5+ years, so they're going through different iterations, and the technology is improving with each iteration. And then business model innovation. So there are companies such as Highland and others that do what we do, which kind of help to close the cost delta that you'll hear talked about a lot between diesel buses and electric buses. With that, we can go to the next slide, and I will introduce our speakers. First up, we are going to hear from Kamari Hodges and Mandeep Singh. They are with the US EPA Region 6 office. Kamari is a life science scientist for the US EPA, and she'll be serving as one of the points of contact for programmatic and technical issues for the Clean School Bus Program. So a good person to know. Mandeep Singh has been involved with the Clean School Bus Program at the EPA for just over a year. And he graduated with a BS in environmental science and an MS in environmental and resource management from Arizona State University. And they've got a really informative presentation, and it's a good time to note that this presentation, we will be sending around a PDF version of it afterwards, and then also a recording of the webinar. So you don't feel like you have to furiously take notes. You can give them your full attention. And then we'll be hearing from Jessica Kythen. She is the co-founder and director of the Texas Electric School Bus Project. The project was officially launched in February of this year. Jessica and TESBP co-founder Laura Hester saw that an organized and aggressive push from the local and state level was needed to get electric school buses on the road more quickly, especially in the communities that need them most. Jessica graduated from Rice University with a double major in history and visual arts, and armed with an excellent education and with a background in community organizing, common sense environmental justice campaigns, and a love for working with children. Texas Electric School Bus Project gives Jessica the opportunity to use this unique set of skills to impact the lives of children across the state of Texas. As a mother of two young boys, it's her dream come true. She lives in the Houston Heights with her family. So with that, I will pass it over to Kamari and to Mandeep, and they will fill us in on all things EPA Round 3, Clean School Bus Program, and then also some other Texas funding opportunities.
All right, thank you for that, Claire. All right, so you guys can hear me okay? See me okay, right? Just want to double check. Okay. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Mandeep Singh. I work at a Region 6 based out of Dallas, Texas for the EPA. Just talk to you today about our Clean School Bus Rebate Program. Next slide, please. All right, I have to get through this quick disclaimer, and after that, I promise I won't do death by PowerPoint. So once I get through this, it'll be smooth sailing. All right, so this presentation aims to provide information related to the Clean School Bus Program. EPA does not endorse any specific companies, products, or organizations by allowing external parties to present at Clean School Bus Program events. The presenters at this event are not intended to be a comprehensive list of companies or products related to the Clean School Bus Program. Mention of or referral to commercial products or services and or links to non-EPA sites does not imply official EPA endorsement of or responsibility for the opinions, ideas, data, or products presented at these locations or guarantee the validity of the information provided. Mention of commercial products and services on non-EPA websites is provided solely as a pointer to information on topics related to environmental protection that may be useful to EPA staff and the public. All right, thank you for that. All right, so under the bipartisan infrastructure law of Clean Schools and Ferries, it provides $5 billion over the next 5 years for the replacement of existing buses with zero emission and clean school buses. So our current funding opportunity, the 2023 rebate program, which is going on right now, is our third funding opportunity, second rebate. Next slide, please. So rebates and grants, what's going to benefit your district the most? So in a rebate application, the process is quick and simple, and it's done through our EPA website, whereas the grant process is a longer and more detailed application approach and submitted on grants.gov. For the selection process for the rebates, it's done through a random number generated lottery process, the same as last year's, whereas the grants, you're actually evaluated on your application material and you're scored accordingly. For the funding support, the flexibility is a little less than the rebates compared to the grants. And this is the big one. So the number of replacement buses. So for the rebates, if you're a first-time adopter or you're looking just to get your feet wet with a small fleet of EVs, then this is the way to go for the rebates, since the minimum replacement bus is 1 and the max is up to 25. For the grant process, you need you need at least a minimum of 15 buses to apply. So that automatically excluded a lot of smaller districts looking to adopt EVs. The timing we extended the 4-month application window. It used to be 3 months last year just to account for the holidays, so you do have a little more leeway when it comes to applying. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So the eligible applicants. So this is pretty similar to last year's. If you guys are familiar with the 2022 rebates, we just added the eligible contractors, so private school buses can now apply, as well as, public charter schools as well, along with everything else that stayed the same, such as the state and government, local entities, and Indian tribes and tribal organizations. Next slide, please. All right, prioritization criteria. This can determine how much funding you can receive per bus, whether you are considered prioritized or non-prioritized. So any high need school districts, or anybody living with 20% or more students in poverty. And if you don't have that and you're a Title I funded public school district, you can self-certify. More information on self-certification is found on our website. Any rural district codes? So last year we had 42 and 43. This year is only 43 because the 42 code applies to a lot of other prioritization criteria. And Bureau of Indian Funded School Districts, as well as school districts who basic support for children who reside on Indian land. Next slide, please. All right, the funding per replacement bus. So like I talked about earlier, if you meet a prioritization criteria, you're allowed more funding, such as the top left-hand side screen, the zero emission class 7 plus bus, you can receive $345,000. And now we're going off of our grant program, so you can combine this this funding amount, so the bus and the charging infrastructure. So say you have a good deal, like a relationship with your dealer, you can use that money more towards the charging infrastructure if that's what your district is lacking, and vice versa. You can play with that money how you see fit. We also added ADA compliant buses, so you can request up to additional $20,000 for any fuel type to equip it with a wheelchair lift. And there are tax credits now available with the IRA, and we'll go over that in the next slide. All right, just quick disclaimer here, we cannot give tax advice, so please refer to the guidance on the IRS website for further instruction. So you may or may not be eligible for Inflation Reduction Act tax credits, mainly the commercial clean vehicle credit, which provides up to $40,000 for the clean vehicle, or the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit, which can provide up to $100,000 for the qualified charging and refueling infrastructure. Again, check their website to see if you're even eligible for to claim all or a portion of this, but it is stackable with our funding. It does not go against that federal grant funds where you can stack multiple. You're not allowed to stack multiple federal grant funds. This does not apply to this, the tax credits. Next slide, please. All right, some state funding. Again, you can combine this with our funding along with the IRA tax credits. So the Texas Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Program, this is catered to the bus and infrastructure, whereas a TURP is more for just the replacement of the bus itself. Next slide, please. All right, the eligible existing buses. I won't go over each bullet point here, but it has to be a vehicle model year 2010 or older to be swapped out with a clean vehicle, clean school bus. So that's a big criteria of our program. We're taking one diesel bus or a polluting bus off the road to replace it with something clean. So it has to be a 2010 or older diesel powered bus that will be scrapped if you select it for funding. If you don't have any and you only have like 2011 or newer, it can be scrapped, sold, or donated. And it has to provide a bus service for at least 3 days a week on average during the previous school year. Next slide, please. All right, the new bus. So it cannot be, this is the big one, it has to be, cannot be manufactured or retrofitted or otherwise have like a power unit or a pollution source installed within the bus, such as like an unvented diesel passenger heater. And it cannot be purchased or otherwise subsidized with other federal grant funds. Again, this doesn't apply to the Texas grants, the state grants, or the IRA tax credits. Next slide, please. Has to be a model year 2022 or newer. And we had this question a lot, and it's still in talks about repowers or the conversion of a bus from diesel to battery electric. So you're pretty much taking the motor out and adding what you need, such as a battery electric or propane or CNG drivetrain. Right now, that is not eligible for funding unless it's done before the first retail sale. But there is in talks. We just don't know when or if it's going to happen in the future. Next slide, please. All right, so infrastructure funding restrictions. So this is a little different from last year's where we had utility side and fleet side. We're using front of the meter and behind the meter this year. So anything in the red on the left-hand side of the screen is a non-eligible expense, such as the utility distribution network or the transformer on the, I don't want to say utility side, but on the front of the meter. And then on the behind the meter, so electric meter, panel, charging station, any kind of like solar panels that you have for the battery energy storage systems, that's an all eligible expense that can be covered. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown of the visual we had on the previous slide, but one thing to note here is that all the electricians installing or operating the electrical vehicle charging equipment, they need to be certified. Also, Build America, Buy America does apply to eligible vehicle charging infrastructure equipment, and we'll go over that in a second. Next slide, please. All right, so what is Build America, Buy America? So certain infrastructure projects are subject to this if they fall under bipartisan infrastructure law, which Clean School Bus does. So it requires that all iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials used in federal infrastructure projects are produced here in the United States. So school buses are not required under Build America, Buy America. However, the electrical chargers, any supporting equipment that goes along with that are subject to Build America, Buy America. Again, if you need more information about that and what exactly qualifies, you can go to the website on the screen here. Next slide, please. All right, now I'll pass it over to Kamari Hodges, who will talk about next steps on how to apply.
Thank you, Mandy. Yes, so now we can move on to the next steps on how to apply. On the Clean School Bus website homepage, you can find a handful of links with valuable information and resources that may be helpful as you learn more about the Clean School Bus projects. Some of these resources include technical assistance, workforce development training, and educational materials on clean school buses, and they can all be found on the homepage linked at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. So EPA has a utility engagement pledge set in place due to the concern from many school districts in that installation of charging infrastructure was a big challenge when pursuing their clean school bus projects. So now EPA is working with two national electric utility company organizations that provide resources from four school districts, including facilitating communication between electric providers, providing technical assistance, and increasing funding and deployment of clean school buses. You can also find more information about EPA's utility pledge on the technical assistance page linked at the bottom of the slide as well. Next slide. So the next steps on how to apply to the 2023 Clean School Bus Rebate Program include to first visit our website and utilize some of the tools and resources available on how to apply. We then suggest that you register in sam.gov if you haven't done so already. Complete your application form and supplemental applicant forms, and finally submit your application package by January 31st, 2024, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Next slide. There are some new supplemental application forms to be aware of that I will briefly walk through, including the School Board Awareness Certification, and this is for all applicants to submit, and this verifies awareness of the school district's rebate application. The school district approval certification for third-party applicants, and this will verify the approval of the third party's rebate application. And finally, the utility partnership agreement for zero-emission school bus applicants, and this will also verify the electric utility provider's awareness of the school district rebate application. Next slide. So once you've read the program guide on the rebate webpage, you can begin completing your application. The link to the applicant dashboard can be found on the Clean School Bus online application forms page shown in this sample screenshot, where you can also find other helpful resources as well. Next slide. So we did also want to include some electric school bus myths that may be helpful to address going forward in the application process. Some including that electric school buses can't operate in hilly terrain where they may need more energy than the conventional bus, but regenerative braking while traveling downhill can capture extra energy to actually extend the electric school bus range. So I won't go through every myth, but you can see that some of them are related to the conditions under which electric school buses can operate or can't operate, such as cold regions or the range of the buses, and how these facts refute them. And these sources can also be found on the electric vehicle myths page on the Clean School Bus website as well. Next slide. So now we can move on to important dates. The program is now open and available to submit your application. There will be additional webinars posted on the Clean School Bus website at epa.gov/cleanschoolbus. As mentioned, the application is due by January 31st at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. There is also a helpline, Clean School Bus at epa.gov, to help answer your questions as we create an FAQ document, and they must be submitted by January 10th, 2024, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We do anticipate to notify selectees starting April 2024 through October 2024. After selecting notification selectees, and they will need to submit their payment request form as well at that time. And finally, the project period deadline and closeout form must be submitted by April 2026. Next slide, please. Finally, to summarize, we want to encourage school districts to consider which competition structure, whether grants or rebates, makes the most sense for them. And as long as you're eligible, you can apply for all future funding opportunities. We also anticipate to do another grant in spring of 2024, and you can remain updated or stay in touch at our website, epa.gov/cleanschoolbus. Additionally, there are several resources available through the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. This is providing both clean school bus applicants and selectees support on topics like coordinating with electric utilities or analyzing charging infrastructure needs and more. You can find more information about the program in the program guide, and if you have any questions, you can also open the Q&A document and find the answer to the question or reach out to us on the helpline email, cleanschoolbus@epa.gov. Thank you for spending the time with us today and to learn more about this exciting funding opportunity, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandeep and Kamari. Lots of information in there, and like I said, we'll PDF these and send them around afterwards. But I think that was super helpful. And be thinking of questions that y'all may have for Kamari and Mandeep as we get into Q&A at the end. But now I'm going to pass it over to Jessica.
Thank you very much, Claire, and thank you, Mandeep and Kamari, as always, for a fantastic and informative presentation. It's always really great to hear this information from the folks who are working for the EPA. So thank you again for being here. I am Jessica Kaithan. I'm the co-founder and director of the Texas Electric School Bus Project. We are a new nonprofit here in Texas. Our mission is to facilitate the speedy and equitable transition to a zero-emission school bus fleet in Texas and beyond. So I am really proud to be representing our organization. We are the first nonprofit of our kind in the US that's specifically dedicated to advocating for electric school buses on a regional or state level. So really excited to be doing this work. So who are we exactly? What do we do? So when we saw that there needed to be a dedicated push for electric school buses in Texas, we realized that the number one thing that we needed to do was let people know about electric school buses, to do the education and outreach, to let people know why electric school buses are important, and that there is a solution that exists now, that all we have to do is find the right partners to help us implement the solutions. And so we've created learning tools, including a community toolkit, which you can find on our website. And there will be a link later on, a QR code, and that gives community members language, resources, and links to be able to have the tools that they need to convince decision makers in their own communities to adopt electric school buses. So sample letter templates, social media post templates, ideas for organizing, things like that. And that we have available in both English and in Spanish on our website. We also do a lot of events. You'll find me around the state of Texas speaking at all kinds of different conference events. We create content. We have open house events. We're also a hub for information and networking for stakeholders in Texas. So we're really excited to welcome Highland Fleets as one of our newest members. And that's a really exciting part of this for us as well, is that not only do we represent the stakeholders, we serve the school districts and the students who ride the buses, and we work to create the kind of ecosystem in Texas for our corporate members to be able to actually get this work done in Texas, where we have the largest school bus fleet in the nation. So we're really excited about our corporate membership program, really happy to have Highland as a member. And then that's another part of our work, is a call to action. We're here to just sort of rally around electric school buses and get people to come and help us do that. So these are some photos of some of the things that we've been up to just this summer. Next slide, please. So why electric school buses? And at this point, you all may be familiar with a lot of this information, but I don't think that it ever hurts to touch on it, because these are our kids that we're talking about. And these are the things that I learned that were the motivating factors in starting this nonprofit. Most of our school buses in the United States run on diesel. Diesel exhaust is linked to serious physical issues like asthma and heart disease, but also exposure to diesel exhaust can have serious cognitive developmental effects. Children, because of their developing systems and faster respiration rates, are especially at risk. And the number that I learned that was enough to convince me to incorporate a nonprofit was the concentration of the exhaust in the cabin of the school bus, measured up to 12 times more concentrated than the ambient air outside. And so it's not a question of if this is something we need to do, but how quickly can we get this done? So that's what we're doing. Next slide, please. This is illustrative of just another one of the reasons why it's so important. The kids that ride the buses to school tend to be the most vulnerable members of our student population. So people who are already suffering from outsized effects of air pollution, people who are from low-income families, from families of color, from families that live in rural areas or on tribal lands. So just really important to get a clean ride for these kids. So next slide. So obviously, one of the great benefits of electric school buses are the cleaner air in our communities and the improved health for the kids that are riding the buses. But the benefits really go a lot beyond that as well, which is one of the exciting things about this. So you have reduced noise pollution for the community, for the kids on the bus, for the drivers. We have cost savings, and I'll go into this a little bit more in later slides, but some of the cost savings that are associated with electric school buses are staggering. $5,000 to $11,000 per year in savings in maintenance costs per year per bus, potentially $150,000 plus of savings over the lifetime of the bus. We also have the sustainability and environmental benefits, and then the education and economic opportunity as well. And we're talking about creating an entire ecosystem in the state of Texas, creating jobs, creating good paying jobs, creating pathways for our students to enter STEM careers, normalizing electric mobility for an entire new generation of kids. So the benefits go far beyond the obvious one of cleaner air on the bus for our kids. This is just going into what I was saying about the savings and over the lifetime of the bus. The conservative number is $100,000, but it's been quoted in the media up to $180,000 of savings over the lifetime of the bus. So, you can take the conservative estimate and it's still excellent savings. Next slide, please. Some other things to note about the maintenance aspect, it's sort of, you ask yourself the questions, okay, why is it less expensive to maintain? And some of the reasons are there are fewer fluids to maintain. You need your windshield wiper fluid, but you're not worrying about oil changes or transmission fluid or anything like that. And in general as well, there are less moving parts. There are over 2,000 parts in a diesel engine, and it is much more simple in an electric. You also have highly improved braking efficiency as well. And so you're looking at changing your brakes much less often, which when you're thinking about, traditional braking and stopping such a huge vehicle, you're going through quite a lot of brakes over the lifetime of the bus. So you're a little bit of a glimpse into how some of the savings are achieved in terms of the maintenance aspects. Next slide, please. This is something that I think is important as well, and it's one of the things that we are really, really focusing on is creating education around the planning and implementation of electric school bus fleets so that all the stakeholders in the districts can have the education and resources that they need to be able to make the informed decisions that are best for their districts. And so one of the best ways to find out what works is to talk to the people who have been implementing electric school buses in their fleets and finding out what has worked well for them, what has not worked well for them, what can be improved, et cetera, et cetera. And so these are some of the tips that come from some of these experienced operators, thinking about planning for expansion, thinking about matching your bus routes with the range of the electric school bus. You're not going to jump to immediately doing the, overnight football trip in, across the state with your electric school bus. You're probably going to look at some of your daily routes and some of your shorter daily routes first. Take charge of charging costs. So think about what you are going to do to partner with organizations that are going to help you do that. There's all kinds of different technologies available for this. And this really goes in as well with making sure that you know how to get in touch with your utility, which we'll talk about a little bit more as well. And it's critical as well in this round of EPA funding. Make sure that you have a backup, prioritize driver and technician training, and involve all of the stakeholders in the process from the beginning. So those are some of the tips that have been shared from some of the experienced folks. And then this is, I thought, just an interesting graphic from the World Resources Institute talking about the total cost of ownership for electric school buses versus diesel school buses. And it does a nice job of breaking down the ways that different grants and federal and state programs can be stacked up to accomplish a much lower total cost of ownership. So this is just an interesting way of visualizing the cost breakdown. And again, all of these slides will be available for you later, and there's a ton of great information and graphics available on the World Resources Institute Electric School Bus Initiative. Next slide, please. So a lot of people have been wondering, although I think as time goes on, it becomes obvious sort of what's taking so long. The high upfront cost of electric school buses, it's the new sort of dawn of this technology. Problems with charging infrastructure. One of the most basic things is the lack of information and awareness, and the disparate sort of organizations that are working on this that have had a difficult time sort of interfacing with each other just because they are in different fields. Limited availability, long wait times, need for infrastructure upgrades from the utility side. And so a lot of these things really speak to that we're at the beginning of a new industry, that this is the dawn of something new, and that we are, as an ecosystem, working to figure out the best way forward. And so this is why we believe so strongly in creating trusted partnerships with strategic allies, and looking for the people and organizations that are going to be able to meet your needs, because every district has different needs. And yeah, we can do this together, but there are definitely things to consider moving forward. Next slide. And so this is what I was alluding to before. We're doing an educational webinar series, and this is sort of just laying out from the power of planning all the way through the planning process. So we've done several. We've got one coming up next week with Austin Energy and another member, Rhythmos. And we'll be talking all about how school districts and utilities can collaborate to make fleet electrification a success. So we would love to have you all there. Austin Energy has been working really closely with Austin Independent School District in helping them implement electric school buses in their fleet. And so they've got a lot of really cool insight to share. So I hope you can join us for that. And we will continue our webinar series in the future as well, and really look forward to having Highland present as well, hopefully in the early part of 2024. So next slide. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And I am always available as a resource. Please check out our website as well, texaselectricschoolbusproject.org. You can find a funding guide on there, as well as links to the EPA webinars that are coming up, just a ton of different resources. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Jessica. And again, in the PDF that we send around, we'll have an appendix with additional slides from the Texas Electric School Bus Project with a lot of fun QR codes, and the website and all the other information that that Jessica mentioned. Before we turn over to Q&A, I just want to finish off by saying, you know, Highland can support districts as they think about applying to EPA or apply to EPA. So we provided pretty broad support for EPA round 2, and helped through the pretty extensive grant creation process, but are here to help with round 3 as well. We have a really great grants team, and then the market dev team that I sit on and my colleagues are always happy to answer any questions that you may have. So whether you're applying with Highland, which there's no requirement that you work with Highland after you receive a reward, but if you want to apply with Highland and we can help kind of navigate all of the application process, or if you just have a question, we're happy to be an additional resource to the great resources that EPA is putting out, including the regional offices, and then folks like Jessica and the Texas Electric School Bus Project. So just wanted to make that note. I think with that, we can go into Q&A. If you want to come off video and ask a question, you can just raise your hand with the hand feature. You can also submit questions in the chat. I have a few questions that I am gonna toss out to Mandeep and Kumari and Jessica, and give everyone a little bit of time to think through if they have any questions of their own. So I think my number one question is, and I was inspired by Kumari's slide of EV or electric school bus myths. I know there's one on cold weather. From y'all's experience, since we're talking about Texas here, what about Texas heat? I know I get that question all the time. Can the school buses handle the Texas heat? So that's my first question for y'all.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So they actually did a study. Yeah, it was in Phoenix actually, and so it gets a lot drier, a lot hotter in Phoenix. But it wasn't as bad because for the heating portion of the EV, you need, in a traditional bus could use like engine heat, right? So the engine heat's already kind of warming it up, and so for that you don't have that traditional engine heat kind of helping you. So that's why in colder climates it takes a lot more energy for that to produce a heater to heat the engine. If that makes sense, I'm seeing it in my head. I'm just having a hard time explaining it. But for the heat, it's somewhat similar. So there is coolant running over the batteries in the battery packs. So if we do like an example, say there's a 40% reduction because it's very cold outside, I would say it's probably about half, probably about 20% reduction in about the heat. So it does play a factor, obviously, especially Texas, in triple digits. So it does play a factor. But there are cooling mechanisms within the battery packs themselves that helps with that.
Awesome. Yeah, I always like getting that question because I think that folks assume that it takes more energy to kind of like cool down the bus than it does to warm up the bus in the cold, but they're actually really well fit for hot weather, and like you said, getting into the triple digits. So in Montgomery County, we have the electric school buses that we have here in Maryland. There's actually kind of a wait list for school bus drivers that want to drive the electrics during the summer because they have some older buses in their fleet that don't have AC at all, and the electrics do. So I always like to point that out. I guess again for everyone, what are some of the key resources? And I know that y'all went over this a little bit, but just from y'all's personal perspective that you think are useful to districts that are interested in electrification, whether that's at a national, state, or local level. Like what is that one golden resource that you like to point school districts towards?
Well, in Texas, I would like to point everyone to the Texas Electric School Bus Project because we will be able to help you get where you need to go. If we don't have the answer right away, we will find the person who does and connect you. It's one of the most important parts about our work is creating this sense of community around this issue in the state of Texas so that when somebody has a question specifically for the folks at the EPA, we've already had these webinars and now everybody knows Kumari and Mandeep, and now we can direct our questions to them. And so that's fantastic. This kind of sort of team building and ecosystem building. But also, if you want more general information about electric school buses in the US, the World Resources Institute Electric School Bus Initiative is fantastic. They do a great job of gathering data on, and also the Electric School Bus Alliance. The Alliance for Electric School Buses is a fantastic resource as well that really centers equity in their approach to electric school buses. So those are some of the resources I would point folks to.
Yeah, and from our side, I'll just plug our website, epa.gov/clean school bus. That's a lot of information on there. A lot of different links to take you to other websites that we partner with. We partner with the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. So if it's more like technical questions you need regarding your utility and how much range you're going to need on that bus, a lot of that stuff can be found on that website through ours. So
Awesome. Jessica, we have a question in the chat from Michelle. She was wondering if you could share your general thoughts on electric school buses and transporting students with special needs.
Thank you, Michelle. We had an opportunity a few weeks ago to do a panel at the Transporting Students with Disabilities Conference in Frisco, and it was really interesting. We had the perspectives of some operators from LA Unified School District, as well as Peggy Stone from West Virginia doing pilot project with Green Power there, and also Stephen Mentzer from First Student. And one of the things that we talked a lot about is that there's been a lot of anecdotal evidence that points to electric school buses being helpful for transporting students with disabilities because they are much calmer, they're quieter, they're more stable. They, you know, anything that's happening on the bus can more easily be heard by the monitors and by the drivers as well. And so much anecdotal evidence has kind of come up in this particular sort of application that studies are now being done on this. So First Student is launching a study or a series of studies that looks into this specifically. And there are, I believe there's a paper coming out from the World Resources Institute about this soon as well. So this is going to be a really exciting part of this moving forward. So great question. Thank you.
Awesome. A question for Mandeep and Kamari. I know obviously y'all talked about how round 3 is different from rounds 1 and rounds 2. But with those rounds behind us, what are some of the obstacles that you saw for school districts, specifically in Region 6, when thinking about applying, going through the application process or into implementation?
yeah, for us, it was a big thing for utilities. So districts or applicants, they weren't getting in contact with utility early on enough. And then when it was time for it, they were realizing, okay, well, we can't get the infrastructure put in before the buses come. So there's a long lead time on those. And then the utility itself has to make a bunch of upgrades on their end. So getting in contact with them is paramount, I think, very critical in the beginning, as well as the supplemental application forms we have now on our new updated rebate application process. They should help solve that problem, because you have to get in contact with your utility and show that you have started that process. And also for the submitting the PRF, so the payment request forms, that the support documentation for the payment disbursement requirements, you got to pretty much show that it has to be a concrete proof of how much it's going to cost you guys. So it can't be like a bid or proposal. It has to be solid numbers. Otherwise, we can't go forward with just speculative numbers of how much we're going to fund you. So that was another issue. So just big thing with utilities. And also, I remember there was, I can't name drop the manufacturer, but there was a certain bus manufacturer that was meeting the state's safety requirements. So that's something you might want to consider too, making sure the bus you pick is going to be, you know, applicable for your state.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know Jessica feels strongly about the utility portion as well, as do I and everyone at Highland. So I don't know, Jessica, if there's anything that you want to add in there. I know you flagged you're having a webinar with Austin Energy, and I know this is big for y'all. So, oh, you're on mute.
Unmuted now. Yes, this is so huge. It's one of those critical pieces, because you just don't want to have this come up and sort of like take the wind out of your sails once you're already down the road a little bit more. So, you know, I met actually for the first time Mandeep and Kamari out at a transportation directors meeting in San Angelo. And it was great. It was a really great meeting, and AEP, the utility, was out there and they did a fantastic presentation. And one of the things that they said that was surprising in the room, the reaction, they said, did you know that every school district has a dedicated representative, that works with the school district? And pretty much everyone in the room had no idea that that was the case. And so this was a really great place to start. It's like, okay, well, this is something that everybody can do, is go back and find out, the person that is your point person to work with at the utility, and get in touch, start the conversation. And then one of the things that we're working on as well with utilities and districts is, coming up with a list of a checklist, sort of, to go down. What do we actually need to talk about? What kind of information do we need to be on the same page about to move forward? So welcome to input on that. Something that we're working on, and hopefully we'll be able to provide that as a resource for everyone soon. But please do join us for the utility webinar next week, because you'll be able to ask questions directly to Amy Ashley and Clay Wilson at Austin Energy, and they have a wealth of information on this subject. So I really encourage people to join that webinar. And you can register on our website as well for that. So
Awesome. Yeah, I always tell folks, like, when I'm talking to a school district that is maybe just has the thought that they want to start electrifying their fleet, it's like, okay, you should have talked to your utility a week ago. Like, that's how important it is. So I think, like, driving that home is super important. For Mandeep and Kamari, just more of a logistical question, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. But for school districts that went through the round 2 application process and maybe either a part of a individual grant application or one of those group grant applications, can they still apply for round 3 as we're waiting to hear the results of round 2?
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't matter if you've applied in the past and you've been accepted in the past, you can apply for as many as you want. So
Okay.
there's no
And
limit.
Okay, and I know that in some of the y'all slides you had said, it's important for a school district to really think about, which rounds apply most to better to them. Can you expand on that a little bit and just kind of give a little more color to what you guys are thinking whenever you encourage school districts to do that?
Yes, I mean, just for the rebates, because it's a lot more, we've had a lot more positive feedback with that, just because it was last year, and so we have a lot more time for feedback compared to the grant program, which just recently closed. But for that, it was just a lot quicker. Like, it's about 6 pages on the website that you got to submit, and now there are a few other extra forms you got to submit along with it, but that's just to benefit the applicant later on in the process, so they don't have to do a lot of back and forth with us when it comes to getting their buses. So I think for that, and the sorry, I just blanked. But just
Okay.
mainly for that, for the application process, to make it quicker and simple. Oh, sorry, here for the grant program. So for that 15 bus minimum, a lot of districts, so you could pool about 4 districts all together to meet that requirement, but they would need either a third party to go on behalf of them, or like one district out of all those 4 would have to go on with it. It all depends. So it's just whatever's best for the applicant itself in the situation. And in my personal preference, I think the rebate is probably this quick and simple. And if you're just trying to get a few buses replaced, it's probably the easiest option.
Okay. That's super helpful. And I saw Kamari also added in the chat that as long as you are eligible, you can apply for all future funding opportunities. So it's just like a blanket advice on that. I'm curious, Jessica, I know y'all went on like a Texas road show, and you're all over. Every time I talk to you, have been somewhere else or coming from somewhere else in Texas. So, you're talking to folks like on the ground transportation directors and folks that are actually implementing these school buses once they arrive at the school district. So I'm just curious, like, based on your conversation with folks across Texas, what are some of the main things that you hear from them as far as maybe what they're excited about, but also, what they're nervous about or a little more wary about regarding this transition?
So I think that you know, the thing that I've really noticed in talking to people across the state is that this is something they're very interested in as soon as they learn about it, for the most part. And the reason is because, you know, there's a way into this for everyone, but the people who are working, you know, transporting students for a living like this, they care so much about the kids. And so they're looking for ways to care for the kids, to care for their drivers, to care for everybody that's part of this ecosystem. And at the same time, they're also looking for the best ways to be the most efficient with their budgets. And the school districts are as well. And so, you know, I think that people are smart and people are forward thinking and people know that this is coming. And, you know, not everyone is an early adopter, and that's okay. But there are a lot of people, a lot of districts across Texas that have people who are really interested in being the trailblazers in this. And there is the support available for those trailblazers to succeed in electrifying their fleets. We just have, you know, coming out of Texas, in rural East Texas, Martinsville Independent School District is doing all of its daily routes with electric school buses. And it's the first district in the nation that's doing that. And it's a little district in East Texas. And this is just, you know, a place that saw an opportunity and, you know, had the right partners to be able to succeed. So this is what we're seeing. You know, people have this concerns that are based on the exact same fact. People are concerned about the safety of students, so they want to make sure that these buses are safe. They want to make sure that they're not going to strand kids somewhere. You know, people have a lot of questions about range. People have a lot of questions about hills and heat and cold, and rightly so, because this is the beginning and we need this information because this is the most precious cargo. It's the most important thing that we can do, in my opinion, in electrification, because there are the biggest gains. But it's also like one of the things that we have to be the most careful with, because these are our kids. So it's really important that we all speak the same language, that we come together, that we learn, and that we come up with a set of best practices to follow as we move towards standards. And I think that's what we're doing here today, and that's what we are hopefully going to continue to do in the coming years.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, you know, I always emphasize that it's important that everyone also be brought along on the process. So from school bus drivers and maintenance workers to transportation directors to school board members, right? Like, it's important that everyone gets their questions answered, because to your point, a lot of their questions are around safety and just concerns over the children. So it's important that everyone gets their questions answered, everyone's on the same page, and everyone can be a part of the transition. With that, we have a few minutes left, so I have a fun question to ask y'all. And so I will ask each of you, and it's just what keeps you up at night about electrification, hopefully not too much. And then what is one thing that you are super excited about school bus electrification? So I will start with Kamari.
Yeah, we kind of actually thought about this a little yesterday, and we were kind of bringing up the utility kind of process. But I think more importantly, just kind of getting all the resources that each applicant can have out would probably keep me up at night. I know we do get a lot of FAQ questions, but we're getting the same like over. So I just want to make sure that everybody's getting all the information they can get out. And then the second part was
What makes you excited? The most excited?
I think the whole idea of just getting electric school buses out, kind of like what Jessica touched on, just making it a safer for the children, for our children.
Awesome. All right, Mandeep.
Yeah. So for me, I think it's just I'm most excited about the whole just getting EVs on the road, right? Cleaner air for everybody. I mean, the kids obviously are most important, right? They're our future. But just the whole switching over from diesel over to electric is just real nice to finally see that push. And then what keeps me up at night is not having a lot of people apply or not a lot of people being aware of the program. So I guess the outreach efforts kind of like this. I want everybody to know what's out there, even if it may not be benefit them, they can tell someone else, you know. So
Yes, yeah, I always encourage school districts to apply because it shows EPA and it shows you all that there is interest, which I think is really important. All right, Jessica, last but not least.
I think a lot about the kids too. I mean, obviously that's what I've been saying, but I think also from their perspective. And I had the privilege of speaking with this young woman at the first ever tabling event that we did when Laura and I started this organization. We did our first event on Earth Day in downtown Houston at Discovery Green, and it was really awesome. It was a beautiful day. And there was a robotics competition happening at the George R. Brown Center. And so there were kids in from all over the country that were competing in this robotics competition. And they were all in the park coming through, and they were stopping by our booth because we've got a really cool t-shirt design, t-shirts for sale on our website. Anyway, though, so this young woman, like 14 years old, stopped by the booth, and she was reading some of the information and chatting, and she wanted a t-shirt and a button. And she started asking questions, and then she got all teary-eyed, and she told me that she rode the bus every day and that she had since she was a kid, and that she was worried about what was going to happen to her because she was trying to get into MIT. And it was this moment where it was just like this zooming out and this zooming in, where I just saw like just millions of these kids who have their futures in front of them. And I have very rarely ever seen a barrier that I could help actually remove in getting these kids access to the highest quality education possible and the highest possible chances of a successful future. And so it both excites me and it keeps me up at night. These kids, what they're going to do. So let's get them to school on clean buses so they can be the ones that change the world.
Amazing. I think that is a great sentiment to end on. You just put a nice bow on it for me. So I know we've got 1 minute left. I just want to thank you, Mandeep and Kamari and Jessica, all for taking the time to present today and share the wonderful information that you have. We will be PDFing these slides, sending them around. Please feel free to reach out to our panelists, reach out to Highland. We're also happy to help. And then there will also be a recording of this webinar available, and it should be sent out to everyone who registered for the webinar. And with that, I think we will end. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
everyone.
Claire.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Mandeep and Kamari. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all
Thanks,
too.
y'all.
You guys have a good day.
You too.
Yes, you too.